Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The manhwa starts off with the moonlight, as a woman is being pierced in the chest. She says for eternity none of them can escape their shackles. As a group of knights execute her, she says they'll be trapped and feel nothing but despair as she leaves them cursed. Then it jumps to another long-haired woman saying you will live only to be loved, and that they'll share the love they received, and truly becoming a kind and passionate person, then they will come to like her. The boy says that's nonsense, and it isn't even a curse. She laughs saying she can't cast curses. He says she didn't even try to pretend, and says that she told him about a witch leaving a curse behind on her death, but he guesses not every witch can cast spells. He stands up saying he wishes she'd stop acting clueless, and she pets his dog Cole, saying she's got no idea what he means. He says that she's definitely a witch. She asks why he thinks so. He cuts a tree, saying it wouldn't make sense otherwise, since he's been cutting trees down like they were grass, and it must be her doing. She says no, it must be because he's just strong. He laughs asking if she takes him for an idiot, then tells her to explain herself, asking why the trees are so easy to cut, and why she keeps visiting this mountain despite being a stranger. Before he finishes his next question, she says she can't come back for a while. He asks her for how long, and she laughs asking if he's going to miss her. Embarrassed, he says no, then runs off saying he has to go home. His next question was going to be why he only has nightmares when he meets her. We see a small house on a hill, as he runs back with his dog. He tells Cole to go knock his dad over, and the dad turns to see Cole attack missiling at him. The boy asks his dad why he's dazing around, and he says it's because of him. He says his smart son learned his trade, and took his work from him. The boy says he must be proud, and the dad jokingly says he's bored waiting around. The mother comes around saying he wasn't bored at all, and he was just yapping about how proud he was the entire time. The boy laughs, and while eating he mentions how the girl came to visit him again. His dad says that must be why his work ended so early. The dad says the boy calls her strange, yet it seems like she helps his work. The boy says it's weird, that someone he doesn't know is helping him, and he wonders if she has an ulterior motive, and maybe she's a witch. The dad says he heard a few things about witches when he was in battle, and he's heard they have the ability to rain fire from the sky, and overturn the earth. So why would one be playing around with him? He says he has no idea either. He says that she mentioned curses, and she told him about one that still lasts today even though it's been hundreds of years. His mom asks what kind of curse it is, and he tells them the story, but we don't get to hear it. That night while Cole is asleep, we see the boy in bed and he's having a nightmare. He always has it when he meets her. He meets someone in armor, and they slowly turn their head while amidst a field of corpses, and stare at the boy. They walk towards the boy, leaving a trail of bloody footprints behind. They raise their sword then stab the boy in his chest, which causes him to wake up screaming. Cole also starts to bark because of it. The boy calms himself down saying he's tired of this nightmare, and he tells Cole to calm down since everyone is asleep. He heads outside, and says the dream must be a curse from the witch. Then he wonders if it's even something she did. He says he should have been more specific. He starts to have a flashback, and we finally learn his name is Enoch, as the woman returns asking if he couldn't sleep. He says he had a bad dream, asking why she's still here. She says that she always meets him here at night. Then he asks her what happens to those who were cursed. She says he seems interested in that story. She puts her hand on the tree, saying it's a good place. There's a vast plain, a big mountain, and the forest is lush and fragrant. He asks why she's changing the topic. She continues saying not all of the world is good like this place, and there are wars elsewhere. And long ago a war had taken the lives of countless people, and one witch who became a victim cast a curse like she's mentioned before. But due to that curse those who roamed the battlefield were unable to take their armor off for the rest of eternity. They tried everything they could, but they were unable to get it off, and were trapped forever. They went mad, forgetting everything, and are left wandering the lands. Enoch asks if they started to kill people due to going insane. She says she wants to stop talking, as it's just an old story. Flashback ends, and he sits under the tree for a bit longer, then decides it's time to go home, saying he won't see her for a while since she said she was leaving. Cole turns around, and notices something, then begins to bark protectively, as we see a figure with a sword. Enoch asks if it's the woman, but then he hears the clanking of metal, as he realizes quickly it's the knight from his dreams. He recalls the girl saying the knights forgot everything. He and Cole watch as the night gets closer with each step. The knights are bound to wander aimlessly for eternity, The knight raises its sword towards Cole and Enoch yells, and gets Cole out of the attack. He sees the knight continuing its pursuit, and he and Cole begin to run back home. He says that they cannot take their armor off, and almost as if they were to vent their frustrations, the knights just slaughtered countless people. He trips and falls, and Cole stands his ground barking at the knight. Enoch tells Cole to stop, but sees the knight is still right behind them. He realizes it's chasing him, and that his house is close by, but his parents are sleeping. So now he doesn't know what to do, since he can't go home. So his only choice is to take the knight's sword. He runs in at the knight since he has to fight. He dodges a swing, and tries to go in thinking it's a gap, but the knight hits him with the hilt of their sword. He refuses to let the knight go towards his home, so he grabs the blade with his hand, but the knight pulls it away, and kicking him, injuring his hand, the knight begins to walk toward him and Enoch desperately clings onto their feet. Cole comes in with the assist, and they knock the knight over. Enoch takes a small dagger from their waist, and stabs the knight straight through the eye hole of their helmet. The knight screams in pain, and Enoch starts to say that he's killed them, but watches in complete fear as the knight pulls the blade out of their skull. Then the words of the woman hit him, as he realizes this means they are immortal killing machines. The knight gets into their stance, and Enoch realized at that point, he will be killed by this sword. He yells telling his mother and father to run away. He continued to shout hoping they'd hear him, and charged at the knight again. But he couldn't stop it, as the knight carried him back to his house. His mother pleaded for him to get up and run while she and his father were murdered, but he fell unconscious. The knight put their sword to his chest, and slowly sank it in. As Enoch was in a daze, all he could hear was laughter. When he opens his eyes again, he wonders if it's a dream, but notices the slash mark on his hand still. Then he realizes it wasn't, and we see a piece of armor strapped to him. He bursts out of the house, screaming for his family, and instead sees a pink-haired girl, and someone in a robe. He sees the blood stains on the floor, and starts to break down, but the robed person tells him to pull himself together, and they'll wait until after to talk. He screams and charges at them, but they subdue him. They tell him they've saved his life. Enoch asks about the cursed knight, and they tell him they've chased him away. He asks who they are, but sees Cole's corpse, and they tell him they found Cole with a breastplate in his mouth, and they put it on him, but they only found him breathing here. They don't know where the breastplate came from. But if he didn't borrow the curse's power, he'd be dead. Even if it's just a breastplate, he can't escape the curse. He'll never be able to take it off. They ask him if he thinks they've unnecessarily meddled. He looks sad, but says that his tears won't come out, and all he can hear is that knight's laughter. They ask him what he wants to do now. Enoch says he wants revenge. We see right after the knight stabbed Enoch, that it stared at him and covers its eye, but then a shining light is seen. The knight turns to see the pink-haired girl and the knight saying to back off. She says to get away from the kid, and it no longer concerns them. We learn she's a witch from the Blue Spider, and says she'll fight. The knight steps up, and she asks him if he sees something. He asks if she's talking about the family, and she says no, but she is shocked as we see from her perspective. There's an ominous figure of death by Enoch. She says she sees it, as it stretches its hand out to Enoch. The flashback ends, with Enoch sweating, as he almost fell into a river. We finally learn the girl's name is Emma. He tells her she doesn't have the time to waste on this. She says she knows, but asks if he plans to search the entire forest. Emma asks if he can't hear, but the knight says that's just the nature of revenge. It blinds the eyes and deafens the ears. Then he tells her that Enoch is soaked in blood, so cauterize his wound when he calms down. She looks over to see him planking, and later the night she has a campfire set up, and she's heated her knife to sterilize it. She puts it on the wound, and he screams, which scares her. She says it's just temporary and he needs professionals' help. He thanks her, then she asks if he wants to go with them. She says she can introduce him to a hospital and somewhere to work, but he needs to pick urgently. He walks away, and she asks where he's going. He thanks her for helping bury his family, but he says he cannot go as he has stuff to do. She asks if it's only revenge, and if that's all he wants. He slowly turns back to her, saying revenge isn't close. He'll catch him and impale him with every sword he can find. Then he'll cut his hands and feet off, and make him scream until his throat runs dry. Then he'll carve his eyes out and eat them, until he begs to be killed. She says this kid is screwed up. She wants to persuade him, but she's too scared, and she was going to try and tell him he can't win against a knight, but she can't now. She says that she needs to buy time for the other man to return, then tells him good luck. He says he hopes she reaches her destination safely. She tells him that they can help him with his revenge. She thought she saw the one who sets the rules of death. That's what she believes anyway. She truly believes the god of death was present, and she's still confused as she witnessed the god of death shedding tears over a mere human's death. She needs to find out how he's related to the god of death, so she introduces herself. Saying they were transporting a holy relic, they have to move it quickly, but couldn't just idly wander by the murder they witnessed. She asks if he knows anything about witches, or even the blue spider coven. She briefly explains the white bird moves for justice, the blue spider is for exploration, and the red snake is solely for profit. These are the three covens. He tells her this has nothing to do with him. She says they need to hurry and get going. She snaps a twig, and the fire goes out. Enoch tells her, but she says that someone extinguished it, and they must leave before the tracker from the red snake catches up. We see a girl holding a whip. Her name is Lita. Emma tries to be friendly, asking if she's been well. Lita makes a knot with her whip, saying no. As the ground beneath Emma and Enoch collapses, Enoch begins to fall and Lita turns around to see Sir Knight telling her to leave. She begins to do something with her hair, and Emma tells him not to let her tie a knot. She manages to do it anyway, and the ground beneath them collapses. Lita says she's made quite a fun friend, and Emma breaks another twig, saying they should talk things out. But before she can do anything, a knife is sent right by her head, and Lita tells her to speak. Emma says that the rumor about the one with the holy relic seeing the god of death was true, and she saw it herself. Lita tells her not to finish, and beneath where Enoch fell we see a wolf's corpse. He raises up and sees that it wasn't just one, but a whole pack of wolves had been slaughtered, with only bloody footprints remaining. Back to Lita, we see Sir Knight cutting her whip, and leaves begin to fall down onto her, piercing the ground. They land on Sir Knight and Lita asks what she's doing. She says she just made the leaf just a bit heavier. Lita asks if she was trying to kill her. Emma says it's not that serious. Sir Knight asks Emma if she's ready to talk, and Emma shouts to let him know that Enoch has the item, but he fell down the slope earlier. Lita looks over at the sword in his chest, and asks if it's fashion or something. He says there isn't a proper sheath, and he'll go chat with Enoch. He tells Emma good luck, and she realizes he was watching her talk to Enoch. Lita says this isn't something she can overlook, and it's not something that can be avoided. Emma says she has a suggestion. Then we see Sir Knight at the wolf corpses, and he asks Enoch if he understands what it means to wear armor now. He says if life is a journey on a long road, theirs is endless, and asks if he truly wishes to pursue the path of revenge and hatred. While he's talking, we see that Enoch's followed the bloody footprints to a cave, and he is laser focused. He says he's found it, and grips one of the swords from the wolves. But then he notices there's multiple pairs of footsteps. Sir Knight comes up saying it's quite chilling, and asks if he truly thinks he can fight like this. Then he warns him that inside the cave is a wandering order of knights. It's not just the one who killed his family, but more. He tells him he would just go in only to be in nothing but pain. He asks if he would be begging for death, but that'd be annoying since he cannot die. He says it's called a baptism. If you stab and slash the undying, it makes them mad. That's what it is. It's the only thing he'd receive from going into that cave. He asks if that's truly what he wants. Then tells him to become his squire, learn the sword and the logic of the world, and live his life. Enoch says understood, and says he will do that. He will learn all he can and live how he wishes, but he yells at all. Sir Knight says that he's being really loud, and Enoch says it should be loud enough to draw the knight from the cave. Sir asks if he truly thinks he can defeat a knight. Enoch says there's only one thing to do. Sir tells him to step back, saying that he must be planning something. From the cave we hear the sound of metal, as knights begin to pour out of it. Among them is the one who murdered Enoch's family. Enoch sees him, and yells saying he's here. Sir realizes now that Enoch's plan was to get Sir to handle the rest while he fought his attacker one-on-one. He decides to indulge it, and see what Enoch can do. As Enoch runs from his attack, he grabs the sword, and stops aiming at the knight's throat. The knight avoids it, and Enoch uses the momentum to swing the hilt and hits him in the head. The knight gets a little concussed, and Enoch pulls his bandages off, saying he can't die, until he kills him. The knight laughs, then swings at him again. Enoch grabs his blade off the ground, then pulls it, trying to pull the knight down, but he avoids it. He then pushes Enoch down, and with his dagger he starts to stab towards Enoch's eye, but a bright light is seen as the blade shatters into dust. We see Emma snapping a twig, as she saved Enoch. Sir comes over and kicks the knight over, and tells Enoch that at least now he understands how weak he is. Enoch's wound opens, and he grabs a twig, telling Emma to help. She snaps one, and he starts to make marks on the knight's helmet. Sir picks him up, and throws him to Emma saying to get out of here, and we see the knight has an X on his helmet. We'll call him X from now on. Enoch says from now on wherever he goes people will notice his marking, and he'll use the people of the world as his guides. He'll forever chase X, that mark is proof he's being chased by him. It's a curse of Enoch's doing. This was all Enoch could do for revenge. He and Emma ran away from Sir. Enoch was distraught that he was so weak. He began to cry since he couldn't do anything. Emma puts a branch into water, then snaps a twig allowing them to run across the water. On the other end Lita was waiting with a horse. Emma thanks her and says she'll repay this debt. Lita calls out to her, but Emma says not to worry, and it won't be a problem. Emma says the red snake is involved, so there will be a problem. As they ride their separate ways, Lita tells her to be careful. It jumps to a castle called Tav Castle, and some guards are talking about how their enemies are preparing their final attack. But half of their defense is injured, and how the white bird only sent 2 people as reinforcements. They ask where the second one is, and a woman says there won't be a need for both of them to be here. And we see the witch from the start atop the castle wall, looking across at the enemy camp. A woman starts to prepare a fire arrow into her bow. She draws it back, and aims it, piercing a piece of white cloth on the way to the castle. It hits the side of the wall, creating an explosion, and they say they only need one more shot, and to prepare to siege it. A man asks the woman if there's any magic to just wipe out the enemies, and she says that it's magic, not some godly power. Witches have rules they are bound to, and they aren't allowed to twist the lives of human beings. The man says regardless, there's some real merit to hiring a witch. He says they'll soon have conquered the castle, and she'll have enough money too. She doesn't really care about the outcome, and wonders how long the White Bird Coven will watch as spectators. We see the witch that was with Enoch, we'll call her Witchy for now. Take her cloak off, as it floats in the wind. Another arrow is launched her way, she stretches her hand out, and we see the arrow was caught mid-air. They are surprised, and so am I since Witchy has turned into a whole-ass giant. The archer says it's crazy to think the white bird were hiding something like this. The short-haired girl from earlier says it's a power only she can use. We learn Witchy's name is Chloe, and she can overturn wars by herself. Chloe swipes at the enemies. The archer girl and Baldy see her. Chloe takes the chance to swing her hand down onto them. She misses by a little, but the archer girl doesn't even flinch. Chloe shrinks back down, and puts her cloak back on. She says the white bird will no longer tolerate these attacks. The short-haired girl is staring at the battlefield, and we learn her name is Dana as Chloe returns. Chloe says that they'll retreat when dawn breaks, and it seems like they've made a deal with a witch. Which is why they were able to interfere. Dana asks if there's anything else. Chloe says she doesn't think there's anything left to do here. And she wants to go back and see Enoch, since he might be waiting for her. Dana says okay, and gives her a farewell hoping she stays safe. Chloe says that he's similar to Dana, and they meet at the tree all the time. It jumps back to Sir, who is clobbering some knights. We see he's taken 2 down and there's still 3 left. He and X have a WWE stare down, and Sir charges in with his sword. We see he went for X's other eye, and Sir says that's laughable. X turns around, and Sir says that suits him to flee. But it'll be great if he remembers Enoch since he has sins to pay for. Sir gets pushed back to the river, and says if they are gone already he doesn't have to fight these people anymore. Chloe returns back to Enoch's home to see blood, and the graves of his family. She feels outraged, and instantly hulks out yelling for Enoch. We see she isn't far from Sir. She sees Sir, and gets pissed. Then yells at him. Sir wonders if his time has finally come. Chloe shrinks back down and gets close, then punches Sir, causing him to spit up blood. She skips him like a rock across the river, and turns to the rest. She throws dirt into their eyes, but we see that the dirt begins to change form. It begins to glow red, then explodes on the group. Sir looks up, to see her, and reaches for the sword in his chest. He stops her from pulling it out, saying to unhand him. She says that she'll pull this out and stab his head instead. The sword begins to glow, then her arm gets blasted off. Sir stands up saying she's more rude than he thought. He says even though witches are granted powers that defy principles in this world, there is one domain they aren't granted power over. Even witches cannot control something that has a soul. Yet Chloe is able to grow to the size of a mountain or shrink, and even teleport. Also she can regrow her limbs. He grabs her arm, and asks what she sold her soul to. She asks what he did to Enoch. He tells her he put a breastplate on him, and the one who prepared the breastplate was her. He says he read the message inside of it, and we see a dying Enoch pleading to Sir to save his parents instead of him. But it was too late. Chloe asks where he is now. Sir asks if he's that important that she made him wear a breastplate, being cursed for eternity. It's doing nothing, but making him fall down the path of revenge, but it made him realize something, that eventually he'll go insane chasing for his revenge. Whether she wanted to or not, this is Chloe's responsibility to bear. She starts to cry, saying to hand Enoch over. Sir says he refuses to do so, he'll be taking the boy with him. She jerks her hand away from him, saying that she'll kill him. He says surely she knows that's impossible. A woman's hand is seen stopping Sir from drawing his blade, and she sprinkles dust towards Chloe, getting them both to stop fighting. When Chloe snaps out of it, she sees that everyone is gone and it's day now. She is nowhere in sight. She has a flashback of her petting Cole. She says that she'll be counting on him, and if something happens while she's gone, to give Enoch this breastplate. Flashback ends, and we see Dana and Chloe together again. Chloe says that some people have taken Enoch, a knight impaled by a sword, and a witch who can stop time. Dana asks what happened, and she says that Enoch's lost his family, and she was here engaging in a meaningless war. Dana tells her to get it together. This isn't meaningless. They are on the path of preventing more wars. Chloe looks dejected, and says she'll be leaving the White Bird, as she needs to punish people. It jumps back to Enoch on Emma's horse. He wakes up and asks where they are, but she tells him to be careful moving. She says he was out for a few days, and thought he actually died. She tells him that Sir remained behind and bought them time to escape. Enoch looks disappointed still, and Emma sees this, and he asks her if witches know how to kill those who are cursed, since he X'd in the face with a dagger, but he got up like it didn't affect him. She tells him to focus on resting instead. She says they are almost at their destination, and once they arrive they maybe will find something else about the curse there. They get where they were headed, and Emma is getting her cheek pinched. She tells them to wait and listen, but they tell her to quit yapping. Enoch is left alone in an empty-ish town square, and a little girl runs up asking if it's real, and asks about his armor, and if he is cursed or not. He's speechless, but back to the lady who took Emma says she sent an outrageous letter about the holy relic and that she's transporting it. They were worried that she crossed out a part of it, but says since she's returned it doesn't seem to be anything. The older lady says that if she messes with the red snake like that it won't end well. Emma pulls out what I assume is the holy relic, and the rest are shocked, and asks what she did about the red snake. Emma says they probably know that she's here, and they say she's crazy and that she's making this all everyone's responsibility. The older lady says they need to come up with a plan, and asks why she told them all of this, or better yet why the hell she did this. Emma says she couldn't hold back her curiosity. They are speechless by her smooth-brained reply. At a campfire they are talking about how Emma stole the holy relic. They say that's stupid even for a blue spider. Lita says it's not like she plans to keep the relic, which is why she made the deal with her. She flashbacks to when Emma had a suggestion, and it was that she wants to study the relic, then she'll return it and share her research for free. Lita asks what she'll gain from this, and Emma says it's for understanding. Another witch says it's not a big deal, though they've not made progress with the relic, but the reason was that they wanted to monopolize it. But if all of the blue spider is involved, they might gain something from this. Lita says there's one more thing. She tells them Emma saw the god of death. They find it interesting. It cuts back to Emma, and she says those who determine the rules of the world are gods. They begin to unravel the holy relic. And she explains the rules are why she breaks twigs. Each witch has their own rules to abide by. Gods grant them authority, and we see the relic as a skull. They say it's the holy relic of death, even though it looks like a skull. Then they ask Emma if anything special happened. She says she saw the god of death. They begin to suggest destroying it. The older lady yells saying they are dumb, and it's an item they stole, so they shouldn't damage it at all, and that Emma should keep in mind the responsibility for this. She says that since Emma knows they can only use their powers in a way they know of, and within the domain of their knowledge, so surely she must be thinking that if she knows more about death they'd be able to use their powers there too. Emma says exactly, they must know more about this. The relic will hold all their answers to death. If maybe they understand it fully, they'll overcome death. The older lady asks why they must overcome it, and that there are already those who've overcome death in this world. Emma says she must mean the knights, and the older lady says even she knows the insanity they go through just for overcoming death, asking if she wants this. Emma asks if she's truly not curious about overcoming it, and the thought of death is unfair and irrational. The old lady stands up, and gets angry. She sighs saying with the pursuit of understanding comes responsibility, especially for witches like them. She looks at the relic of death, The older lady wonders if the god of death wishes for them to reveal the rules they've established. Maybe that's why the skull was left here. She reaches out toward it, and another woman comes in calling for the elder, saying the red snake are here. The elder says to bring them in, and it jumps back to Enoch walking with the girl from earlier. He's surprised by where they are, and she tells him to follow her. He sneaks through a bar, and asks where they are going. She starts to light torches on the wall, and we see a chained up knight. Enoch is afraid. The little girl tells the knight to look, she brought someone else wearing armor, and that the knight won't speak to any of them. So she thought maybe bringing another armored person would help. Enoch says this is dangerous, and the knight looks up. He sees the chest plate, then breaks himself free of his shackles and walks towards Enoch. The little girl screams. Enoch tells her it's dangerous and to get close. But the knight grabs him by the throat, asking if he's met the one who harvests. Enoch asks what he's talking about. The knight is speechless. But lets out a chuckle. Enoch takes the chance to pull a spear out from the back of the knight, causing him to bleed. Enoch gets ready to use the spear, saying to stop laughing, calling him a murderer. He thrusts it, but the knight catches it and begins to squeeze tighter around Enoch's throat. As Enoch goes to lose consciousness, the holy relic begins to glow with an ominous white aura. Enoch opens his eyes to see a dark subspace, and hears laughter. He turns around, and the god of death says, finally, you've come to me. The red snake girl who was with Lita says she's sorry they have to meet this way, and they are here for the relic the blue spider coven stole. The elder says stolen, huh? And they tell her to take responsibility. The elder says before that she'd like to discuss the item Emma stole. She asks what it is, and the red snake girl asks what she means. The elder says the weight of the issue, the weight of stealing bread versus stealing a horse, is different. And from what she can tell it's nothing but a simple skull. They can't confirm it's the holy relic. The girl says she's sure that the elder knows there's no way to prove the value of a holy relic. The elder says that's why they need to prove it's a relic in the first place. The red snake gal asks if she's sure about this, since it'll be reported to the higher-ups. The elder says yes, and then the blue spiders can uncover the secrets that even the rest couldn't. Emma says that the red snakes couldn't discover the secrets. They didn't ask for help, rather they just hid it away. They are against sharing the benefits that had come from finding the secrets. They've got no reason to decline. The red snake girl says that it sounds good to her, but the research shall be done at their headquarters, and they'll select the witches from the blue spiders who'll be allowed to go. The elder agrees, and says to contact their chief and let them know who to send. Emma is surprised it worked. Then the girl says that the elder, Emma, and the other two girls present will all be going. The elder is surprised, and the red snake girl says they've got a deadline of 2 years. Regardless of whether they can determine it's a holy relic or not, it'll all be concluded by that time. Furthermore, to swear on their lives that they'll keep their mouths shut about the research. If you've watched till the end, comment, "Night," to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.